Get ready the right way to transact smoothly with publishers. Here's our best practices for setting up deals. To get the best out of deals, follow these simple steps and create a realistic timeline. First, we recommend watching our trainings on the AdExchange Marketplace to get familiar with the different deal types and how to discover publishers with matching inventory for your search criteria. Then, identify your objectives. Qualify your advertiser needs to determine if it's a good fit. Determine the publisher you want to work with and speak to them about the details of your campaign, for example, about budget and spend. Secondly, finalize all deal points, including CPMs, targeting, and budgets. Work with the exchange to set up your deals. The publisher should approve the deal IDs. Thirdly, showtime. Go live and QA. Troubleshoot if you need to. And lastly, measure. Continue to follow the best practices and iterate to optimize your deals. With that, let's go through 5 helpful tips straight from our deal experts. Tip 1. Be proactive and transparent as possible in sharing with publishers the targeting settings you'll be using targeting the deals you've set up with them. Why? Because publisher inventory may not work with your targeting restrictions. For example, advertiser lists, sensitive categories, keyword targeting, including negative targeting, where they're using the AdExchange pre-targeting UI or a third-party DSP UI. Secondly, be aware of publisher blocks on creative categories, technology vendors, data and cookie settings. Thirdly, make sure publishers know and allow all creative categories and technology vendors associated with your creatives ahead of launch. And lastly, be proactive in telling publishers if your creatives will be collecting user information for subsequent use in targeting and remarketing. Tip 2. Targeting can severely limit spend on a deal. Keep targeting as open as possible when targeting deals if your goal is to spend a certain amount or as much as possible against a deal. Think of it this way. With Programmatic Direct, you're already doing significant targeting by buying the audience associated with the content you're targeting. This may seem obvious, but too narrow targeting is the #1 reason deals don't spend more. Tip 3. Ask your publisher to use the block override feature for AdExchange deals. This is the cleanest, easiest way to remove deal spend preventers, as this gives the publisher the option to allow certain creative categories, technology vendors, and so on that they would usually block just for a single deal or more deals. Certain items remain unaffected by the block override feature. This includes block setup for cookie and data users. This applies to cookies and data used for data collection, remarketing lists, interest-based category cookies, match coding, and subsequent data. Unified advertiser exclusions created in DFP and certain sensitive categories such as alcohol. If a publisher refuses to use block override, you'll have to be super diligent about making sure, one by one, that all creative categories, technology vendors associated with the campaign and its creatives are approved. You can check Marketplace for deal terms under the publisher profile. Tip 4. Make sure you know the publisher's creative requirements. That includes HTML5, SSL, etc. ahead of time and that you follow their guidelines. To make sure your ad shows up on as many formats as possible, use HTML5. And lastly, tip 5. Make sure the publisher knows and is allowing the landing page domains of all the creatives you'll be running against the deal or deals ahead of time. You want to make certain that the creative's landing page is associated to the right advertiser. Additionally, be sure that the publisher isn't blocking that URL or advertiser or has the block override set to enabled. To summarize, 1. Share your targeting plans with your publisher ahead of time. 2. Keep targeting as open as possible. 3. Ask your publisher to use block override for AdX deals. 4. Know your publisher's restrictions on creatives. And 5. Ensure the landing page is associated to the right advertiser and the publisher isn't blocking that page. Thanks for listening.